but Benjamin is here in attendance, walking in right now. So we'll go ahead and get an approval of the agenda, please.
Move to approve.
Great. Thank you. All right. Okay. All in favor of the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good. All right, we'll move into citizens' comments. So state full name and home address per the village council rules, and then your time is limited to 4 minutes.
UF here in town. It's on 4. Okay. Rebecca Walters, 420 South Kalamazoo, Vicksburg. I'm coming in because our park for the little ones right down there is very outdated, and the bridge to get to it is hellacious. If you're a mama with a stroller, it's not pleasant, and you're definitely worried going across it.
And this is Clark Park.
Correct. And then I heard rumor about a kayak opening over at Sunset. Do we have any updated signings to help warn us about blue-green algae or any issues that we could have? Because I know that blue-green algae is horrible for dogs, can kill them if they drink the water. On if we have any plan to keep or update any signage or posting on when we have that lake tested for things of bacteria or concerns for that. Thank you very much.
You're okay with it. It's not normally what we do at the council, but I'd rather answer this. Now, the beach will start to be tested weekly it's the week before Memorial Day, and that's done by Kalamazoo County. We get the report, meaning if there are no issues, there are no issues, but if there were an issue, they let us know, and then the protocol to go from there. So that's how that's done.
Anyone else? Okay. So approval of meeting minutes. We last met on April 28th, where we mostly talked about this upcoming meeting. So can anyone want to approve those for me? Thank you. Thank you. All right. So our discussion item for today's meeting. Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. So everyone in support, please say aye. Aye. Okay. All right. And then moving on, we have our Parks and Rec discussion item for tonight is the master plan.
Yeah, and I'd like to take time. We're going to get right to it. Now, the game plan for us is we have Mike Hoffmeister from Manic Smith Group, and Mike has 15 years of municipal experience, and he can go through a little bit of his background. He's put together a presentation we've requested to kick off this process, and if the board's comfortable with it, after Mike has prompted some questions that he'll solicit your guys' input in that, and if we have time, we'll be happy to have a roundtable with the people that are in attendance for their opinion as well. The only thing is I'll probably around 6:30, if it's still going, just give like a 10-minute heads up because we're going to have to turn around for a 7 o'clock council meeting. So with that, I'll introduce Mike. It's a laid-back, informal. We are live on YouTube. It'll be archived there. We do want citizens' input as we start this process, and Mike will go through the timeline and that. So with that, Mike, thank you. We look forward to this.
All right, good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Mike Hoffmeister, and I'm with the Manic Smith Group. For you this evening, I've prepared a slideshow, and I prepared it to you in your packets, as well as kind of a one-page white paper that explains the process. This presentation is going to go through that process, but also we're going to use this as an explanation of process, an explanation of thoughts of how we can get this master plan done efficiently and done well. But also, this is going to be used as our first kind of public feedback session, right? How I want your opinions as well. This is not a Manic Smith project. This is a Village of Vicksburg project, and I am simply here to help facilitate that conversation with you all, with the Village Council, and with the public. So we're going to go ahead and kick this off. If you could go to the next slide, please. That's me. I don't want to spend a ton of time on me, but just a little bit of background about me. Again, Mike Hoffmeister, 15 years in the municipal government world prior to going over to the dark side of consulting. I started as a camp counselor in Parks and Recreation a long time ago in my college days, and quickly realized that I love Parks and Rec. Parks and Recreation is my passion. Worked my way up through Recreation Program Coordinator, Assistant Director of Parks. Those were both roles in Indiana, Director of Parks and Recreation. I actually served as Village Manager for 2 years prior to coming over to the consulting side. Additionally, I serve as the MParks Foundation Chair. It's a foundation for the MParks Association, which is like the fundraising arm. And I also serve on a couple boards and committees for the National Recreation and Parks Association, which is the national membership organization for NRP, or for Parks and Recreation professionals. So again, that's not just to, that's just kind of to give you guys an understanding of who I am. I've got business cards, so I can be very accessible to each of you as needed as we go along here. And as we go along, I'm also going to be typing some notes as I get feedback, so forgive me if my head is down. But first things first, if you could go to the next slide, we'll talk about kind of the step-by-step process that is required for a Parks and Rec master plan. A couple of them are administrative, are solely on us to do. The first is a community description. Who is Vicksburg? What's the population? What's the demographic? What's the zoning districts that are existing? So we, in the Parks and Rec master plan, we work behind the scenes to create a very efficient and thorough understanding of what the village is and who the village is and who is it comprised of. And we work with GIS organizations in the county, and we'll work with staff here to get that data, just to illustrate who the village is and what the village is. We'll work with staff to understand the administrative structure. What is the administrative structure? How does this board work? How does this board work with the council? How does this board work with staff? What's the operational perspective of our parks? Who maintains the parks? So we want to illustrate in this plan administrative structure. Who does what? What are the roles of groups? What are the roles of boards? What are the roles of staff? We'll go through Parks and Recreation inventory. So I'll come over, I'll spend a day, or someone will come over and spend a day here taking pictures of all your parks and understanding where your parks are and how they're connected. What amenities do you have in all of your parks? What opportunities are there with existing amenities that might need upgraded? We'll also do a ADA evaluation. So how accessible are your parks? Are they accessible at all, or do they need additional accessible features? Are the playgrounds accessible? Are they connected via trails that are accessible? Are the gazebos, do the gazebos have stairs up? Is there even a gazebo? I'm just using that as an example. But if there's a gazebo, is it accessible? So we'll do a full accessibility understanding of all your park system. We'll understand the amenities of all your parks. We'll understand the trail system. That also includes programming. So what special events are taking place? Who are the special events? Who are running the special events? Is it the DDA? Are there other groups that are doing special events? And then we'll also look at county facilities. We'll look at state facilities. We'll look at any federal facilities around here as well. That all gets wrapped into your plan. It's not just a Village of Vicksburg plan, but it's also what's around here. What parks are your residents using, and why are they using them? Or why are they not using the village's facilities? We'll do a needs assessment. And that is, again, analyzing results of an online assessment. Actually, that's kind of a skip ahead. Stakeholder and public outreach. This is the one that really takes a lot of the time, is the public outreach and stakeholder outreach. This is where we survey the community, right? There's a basic survey that goes out in hopes of getting a number of pieces of feedback. Those are some pretty basic demographic questions, but also park-specific questions. Where do they like to go? What are they doing in your parks? What would they like to see in your parks? And if you're not going to the village parks, where are you going and why are you going there? And so I know a lot of times with smaller communities, a lot of people will use their parks and go to their downtown. So if you're coming into town and you're using a park, are you going downtown to have lunch? Are you grabbing a cup of coffee? Or what other things are you doing when you're utilizing your parks? In addition to the survey, we'll do some asynchronous data gathering. So that's single question polls through social media. It sounds like there's a pretty healthy social media following for the village. So the idea is to maybe grab a survey question and put it on social media just to get some votes, right? And maybe people don't have the time to fill out a 10 or 15 question survey, but they might have time to surf their phone and click a button and move on, right? So the idea is to catch people when they're actively looking at social media and get their information and get their votes. In addition to that, we'll have public input meetings where we'll come here again and have charrettes, and we'll have exercises. We'll have greater conversations with the general public about what they might want to hear, what they might want to see in our parks. And then finally, we'll present a proposed Parks and Rec master plan. So, next slide, please. Again, I'm not going to go into these in depth, but we're going to update demographic and physical land use characteristics, utilize county data, utilize village data, update descriptions of current administration, parks and recreation services, programs, events, and things like that. Next slide. Parks and Rec inventory, update the description of the village parks facilities, update the assessment of the accessibility, I mentioned that already. Assess park conditions, that's a big one. We already heard a comment this evening about something needing repair. So that's something that this process will assist with. And again, this will come with a full slate of pictures and an understanding for you guys of what's needed in our parks. Next slide, please. The needs assessment will update descriptions of facilities, update in the oh, that's the same information. I'm sorry. Next slide, please. And then, of course, the stakeholder and public outreach. We mentioned community survey. We mentioned social media polls, public input sessions. We'll have meetings with staff. We also know there are some very involved community groups in town. The HOAs, the school districts, the Little League, the libraries, arts groups, DDA, et cetera. It might not be individual meetings with all of them, but maybe we'll have a focus group with some of them, or they will specifically be invited to our public input sessions to ensure that they're participating in these groups. Not only is it, like I said, it's parks users, but it's also, we want to know who else uses our parks. We want to know who else is special event participant in our community, in your community, and we want all the stakeholders and community groups' opinions while we put this plan together. One of the things we talked about for public participation and public input is being involved in the Berg Days of Summer. I know those are coming up starting in June, and one of the things we talked about in our kickoff was having myself perhaps at Berg Days and having an iPad or some sort of survey idea, and people just voting really quickly and moving on with their day. I know those are very well attended, and so that's another way to gain public engagement and get public input from the residents of the village in a quick and short way. And we already know there's a large gathering of people, so let's catch them if we can while we're all together. And then any other special events. And again, I want to reiterate that this that's why we're here tonight, to talk through process a little bit, but also it's flexible, right? So these are ideas. If you guys have other ideas, this is the time to mention those ideas, what other thoughts we might have for public engagement, and then be flexible around that. Next slide, please. And then the final step is the Parks and Rec Master Plan. This is the formal process of approving the Parks and Rec Master Plan. Obviously, all the steps leading up to this creates a big, giant draft of a master plan. We then present it to you all as the Park Commission first. You have an opportunity to review it, to edit it, to create change in it. Following any revisions being made, what we'll do is there is a required 30-day public review process. And so that will get published on the village's website, social media pages, and that's a formal review process for the public to look on your website and take a look at it and provide comment. We'll then discuss comments received during that public review window with staff or the Park Commission, and we'll seek recommendation for the Village Council. So that's typically a 2-meeting process. What we'll do is we'll provide the Village Council a draft, and then we'll request adoption of the formal plan through public hearing. And so this does go through Village Council, ultimately with submission to MDNR. And so MDNR basically sets the guidelines for a Parks and Rec master plan. We want to make sure we meet them. And ultimately, a submitted Parks and Rec master plan to DNR means you are eligible for grant funding for future park upgrades. So that's important. That's one of the reasons that Parks and Rec master plan is important, but it also really sets the framework and the guidelines for you all to create a capital improvement plan, to prioritize budgets, to prioritize special events, to prioritize new ideas and new things that you want to see in your parks and community. Next slide, please. This is maybe a little tough to see, but this is a draft timeline. Obviously, this could flex as we go along. We're here today, kicking off the meeting with you all. And I won't go through this verbatim. But ultimately, the summer will be used for public input sessions, the Berg Days of Summer, the survey, the asynchronous timing. The idea is to have a draft plan by early fall and have it back to you all in September. Ultimately, we'll plan on bringing it to the council in December, if not sooner, and then formal approval after the new year so that we can submit the formal approved Parks and Rec master plan to DNR no later than February 1st. That's the game plan. That's the process and the timeline really quickly, because I wanted to leave more time for conversation, for thoughts, for questions, and so any questions on the process or the timeline or anything like that? Okay, so next slide, please. Thank you. So I kind of just provided some generic questions that I like to ask other municipalities as we go through this. And this is how I want to start. And so these are questions, these are talking points, these are conversation areas that I'd like for you guys to ping around some ideas and thoughts. So one of the first things we need to think about with this Parks and Rec master plan is, what are you trying to get out of this process? What is the end goal? Is it capital improvements? Is it more special events? Is it a streamlining of all those events? Is it a formal goal, mission, and values for the Parks and Rec portion of the village? And so I guess one really vague question I'd ask all of you is, what are you all trying to get out of this Parks and Rec master plan?
My thought is that we have a space for more people to go and have experiences with their families. Have a very family-oriented space that is clean and healthy for kids to grow. With lots of different things, besides nice swing sets and playground equipment. I know we're putting in a pickleball court, but there's just more ideas that are the things that we don't even know yet. We ask the questions.
Okay.
What is best for your family? What would you like to see at different parks? Also, to really engage in the water feature that we have, and that our beaches here in Vicksburg would honestly just bring in a lot more people. If we have the best beach, everybody's just going to be at the best beach, and there's no reason why our water isn't the coolest around, which I think it is.
Any other thoughts on what they're trying to gain out of this process, or what the village might be trying to gain through this process?
I'll kind of piggyback on Benjamin where he says, we don't know what we don't know.
Yep.
So looking for that input from the community, from the different generation. I don't have small children anymore, so I don't know, what might be there. So getting all of that feedback and then putting us on that, now we have a nice plan laid out. This is where that'll help the Parks Board go forward in prioritizing things. So I think that's important too.
Another dream I always dream of, which is the space where we have an excellent volunteer group, and which comes down to a highly organized leader, maybe even a subgroup to keep everybody not planting plants they shouldn't plant, and not chopping down trees they shouldn't chop down, and not painting with the wrong type of paint on. The space when people try to help and just make things worse, which is reasonable. I mean, I've seen it before. But having a lot of people want to give back to their community. Having them doing it in a safe way, with proper gear, with proper paperwork. It's an untapped resource that I dream about.
So just to clarify, is there an existing volunteer base that you want to just sort out and iron out, or you want to create a volunteer program?
Yeah, it would just be a better marketed volunteer program where maybe another volunteer from the community would help facilitate that. It's a little complicated to make sure everything's in line and that everybody is safe and everyone's following particular directions and rules of the city, not just take it down walls.
Okay. Any other thoughts from board members? Or staff?
Well, this is their chance to introduce you to one of our newest members from high school. This is a pretty unique, I mean, the board wanted a few months ago really engaged to solicit the youth of the community and make one of these committee spots for the high school.
Cool.
And this is opportunities for input, or what do you like to see on the process, all of you. We had one, and we had the opportunity to talk quite a bit. From a staff perspective, I've shared with you, we're a staff that we're not going through an engagement so we can get certified. Yeah, that's a bonus, but we don't create plans to sit on a shelf.
Good.
We want to make them actionable items. We don't operate under a philosophy of goals at all. We have expectations, and our expectations are to deliver. So that is from our team. What we're looking for is to set the stage to put in action what the community wants. But I'm willing, I want to hear.
One of the things I'll give you a bridge. I'll give you a little leaf, a branch. A lot of times in a community, we hear often that there's not enough things for people your age to do, whether it's in their parks or through development or just things to do. Do you feel there's enough to do in your park system existing right now for you to go hang out in the park and to do something? Or do you need more adventurous? Do you need more things to do?
I feel that there's a lot of opportunities for younger children to really play and have fun, especially out at Clark Park. But I feel like many older kids, like teenagers, they don't really have the opportunity to, as you said, do something adventurous, or they do hang out a lot and spend time outside, which is important, but overall to do something of their liking is not really readily available here.
Okay. You gonna say something, man?
Actually, I was going to suggest another event that you might get some input. We do movie night in the park. I anticipate that Friday, June 20th, will be our biggest night because we do trick-or-treating in the summer, Halloween in
Love
June. And so I anticipate there will be a lot of young families out there.
Great.
So might be just a date you want to keep.
Okay.
As far as what Daniel was just talking about with the teenage, I have heard a lot of feedback about skate park and mountain bike trail. Those were two things that I thought would kind of hit that demographic a little bit better too.
With the mountain bike trail, which has been one of my dreams since there's a giant pile of dirt at the Vicksburg Recreation Center. Yes, there's trees on it, but when it was there like 15 years ago, there were no trees. But yeah, someone with a good plan and a nice bulldozer could make a great space that's about 2 times the size of a basketball court. Would make a great simple dirt bike trail for kids. Another thing that I was always thinking about promoting is the space of you can't use electronics underwater. The space of when you're swimming or doing things outdoors, it is a space where kids are now engaged in not sitting and looking at their phones. And you look at emotional distress from kids being on their phones all the time, that's only in the news all the time. And we know for sure that when they're out in community, that those stresses don't exist anymore. The only stresses that exist are broken arms, which is always healthy for kids to get out and get hurt in a good, healthy way, and to grow, and not the emotional stress that they get from whatever we all know they shouldn't be seeing.
Okay. One of the other, just moving on, and if you guys have any thoughts, please, this is the time to just spew before we get into the nitty-gritty of public meetings and surveys. How does this plan, and you guys might know this, maybe it's a question for Mr. Mallory, how does this plan fit into other plans? 2024 comprehensive plan, the non-motorized plan, right? Part of this conversation is also going to be trails, trail connectivity, whether it's regional or local, right? So we want to make sure all these plans that the village does aren't in their own silos, right? We got to make sure that they're all gelling. So kind of another vague question, how does this plan perhaps fit into existing plans that exist?
Yeah, and so this committee's aware, we did the comprehensive master plan for the overall village and completed that a year ago with council approval. We now have began this engagement process. Part of the July 1 fiscal year will be to do the Downtown Development Association, our core downtown master plan update for that. And how we use it, for those that have been through our budget presentation, we cite specifics from those three plans why we're presenting something. Overwhelmingly, and I think it's over the 85 percentile, when we present something, it's staff didn't come up with this. We're citing a plan that incorporated community engagement and input as well as council engagement and input and put forward. Our mission is to determine how we can best afford it in what order of priorities. So it's really important. This is looking at minimum a 5-year, and predictably in a town our size, 10 years worth of plans that obviously are specific to Parks and Rec, but are blended through and ultimately competing for the general fund tax dollars. So it's important to, and now's the time to throw it out there and begin the process as we work through this.
As we were developing some of these other plans, our strategic planning sessions and the master plan, a lot of the things that were reoccurring themes that we kept hearing were trails, green space, arts, and culture, and indoors and outdoors. So those things have been discussed and brought up through across multiple plans. So I anticipate this is going to fit in perfectly with the direction that everything is headed in Vicksburg.
So it sounds like parks and trails might have been a highlight of that overall the comprehensive master plan for the community.
Sure.
One of, maybe.
One of, yeah.
It was one of the top 4 was recreational opportunities.
As being a priority for the residents.
We have seen just the things the events that we have done thus far. Just with the Berg Days, movie night in the park, we've been able to, that's been a free event for kids and families for the summer. It's been very well attended, so.
Great. Any other thoughts on that? Any thoughts about trail connectivity or need for trails or regional trails or?
There's a lot of space for I believe there's a lot of space for dirt bike trails out in the recreation center outside of the space of the disc golf course area. I've just walked in the woods a few times just out there, and yeah, it's ready for some simple development for mountain bike trails, which I think, I don't know, everybody who loves exercising would go for.
Okay.
I think that eventually the plan is to connect our trail to the Portage trails. That's where I believe in Portage's ballpark now.
Okay.
But, so that is something. Another thing that I've heard is kind of taking this trail where it stops out here and bringing it through town, maybe out to the golf course where there's another trail. So having that walkability through the entire town and outskirts, taking it over to the beach area, so spreading all of that out, I think would be a nice addition.
Also, we haven't discussed the Veterans Memorial Park. It's a beautiful small park right on the water. Just put that on the list. It's, when I go through other small towns and they have one, and I think, how do we miss out on that? I think it's just too important to not have that as a priority. In addition, so another thing was the community garden. As a member of the community garden, when it was available, it was filled with people who were really connected and very passionate and just being part of a community. I don't know if they was there for making vegetables as much as they were for making friends, and or 50-50, I suppose. Just good and healthy. We have the land and property for it, and throw that on the list.
So that's something that exists that's not as used now,
It
or?
existed, but there were things and reasons why it doesn't exist anymore.
Run by a nonprofit
No, we were just running
or
it.
run by the residents?
It was run by the residents.
There'll be time. It's right now this board's time, and then we'll.
Okay, we've talked schedule a little bit already. We've talked about public input meetings. I've got a number of other things to talk about. The survey will consist of demographic data, usage data, park improvement importance questions, prioritization questions, any potential new park development questions. People might want to see a park in a certain spot, so we'll identify those questions. And then I mentioned the asynchronous data through social media polls, and then attending special events through the summer, whether it's Berg Days or Movies in the Park. Next slide, please. Okay, so some more questions. If we don't get to them all, that's okay. But I want some thoughts from you. What, and this is, again, these are kind of deep questions. What do you feel the role of Parks and Rec is in the community? What's the role?
To have a healthy place for families to grow. It'd be the same as going to the library and getting out a book, except you're getting out an experience with friends and family.
Yeah, and I'll elaborate on that too. I think we're kind of from our community, we're the voices to share that with our council as well. So I love doing the social media, seeing like the posts on what everyone wants in the community, because I don't, like Wendy said, like my kids are getting older, so they're not utilizing park space as much as they were. But it's good to see that, we have a need for smaller children for that bridge that I don't think about because I don't walk it much anymore, right? So I think the employee engagement piece for me is then talking about it here as our group.
Okay.
Daniel, did you have something?
So Vicksburg is surrounded by a lot of beautiful nature, so really opening that up and allowing for people to experience that either by walking through the trails or by the beach or just playing around in the parks is really meaningful to me and to many. So it would be really cool to just really expand on that and really foster what is already growing.
I was gonna talk about the nature part, so thanks for bringing that up, Daniel. There's so many areas like around the memorial, the Veterans Park and along Sunset Beach has a boardwalk, but there's other areas where you just have such a beautiful view of the lake, and there's a lot of wildlife, the swans, and just seeing all of that, and having natural areas to encourage just nature. Doesn't have to be, we can have
Active versus
we can
passive,
have, we can
right?
have manicured areas and we can have natural areas.
Right.
I think it's a good mix to have both.
And that's one of the things I mentioned there, active versus passive, right? Do you feel like you have a good mix of active parks, playgrounds, things to do, or passive, where it's just walking or biking or canoeing, kayaking or whatever? So that's just something to think about.
Clark Park has the children's area at the south end, but we talked about trails where you can walk or jog through it on either side. For people that just want to pass through instead of just walking through the grass and things like that.
In your opinions, what are the priorities? What issues, what concerns, what do you hear from the public? What are the priorities of this board going forward?
I think that there's a large group in the community that don't know where these parks are or that they exist. Even when I came on this board about 5 years ago, I had no idea that we had a park, Veterans Park. And when I was told, I had no idea where it was at. So I think there's a lot of people in town that don't recognize what we have to offer yet.
And I don't think Vicksburg's alone in that. What else? Priorities. This is the big one. What are your priorities for the park system or for this plan? Or What do you want to see? Big extravagant ideas? Do you want to see, and I'll kind of piggyback this into an existing conversation. Do you want to focus on the upkeep of your existing things? Or do you want to build new things? Right? So that's the great debate, because money is limited in every community. So
Perhaps a combination of both. We talked about pickleball courts, you know, we talked about a stage area maybe in Clark Park or band shell
an
type thing.
amphitheater.
Where people can gather for different things. You know, even with some of the school activities that gather to kick off the theater season, you know, for example, they have gatherings at different places within, or music in, you know, in the park. What else? Just gathering areas, you know, to bring people out. Never have too much of that, I think.
Pickleball courts are already in the works, I take it? Okay.
Maybe a skateboard park, potentially. Do we have basketball courts?
We don't.
On that drawing, I'm trying to think, I sent it to you guys.
Good call, there's no basketball, I mean, if there
Yeah.
was,
Basketball court by the admin building, right by the bus garage that's open.
Okay. It's part of
It's
the-
right off of the tennis courts.
Part of
It's
the
not that fancy, but
schools.
it's there.
oh, yeah, that one, yeah, it's like half driveway, half basketball court.
No, it's all basketball court with the tap right next to it.
That's funny. I see a basketball court right next to the tennis courts, right?
I think it's a good point in that, because that court is the schools, but it's also where Mike talked regionally before, it's, and we can use pickleball, it's bar none the number one lobbied thing from citizens to me. And we looked regionally, okay, where are the closest pickleball courts? Who would we be, what is the optimal number? And is it, and then we look at it, these park amenities, absolutely, we want first and foremost with the citizens, but we also want it to be an attraction to draw people from outside of Vicksburg to get exposed to Vicksburg, like Mike said, come downtown, have lunch, find these unique shops and come back on the weekend with friends to do some shopping. So that's gonna be key using basketballs. Do we need to invest $140,000 on a basketball court when you cost that out, when there are those opportunities in our community, versus $140,000 for a skateboard park, which isn't offered by either the two townships or us? Baseball, and we all know we're specifically own property that is that we currently have with Little Leagues, a senior league baseball field for, I think it's age 13, 14, and 15. We also know the data shows that baseball players at that age are playing travel quite a bit, and we know there's 4 other diamonds that size within 3 miles of that diamond, be it the township has 3 and the high school has 2. So we know the kids playing for those 6 weeks would have other opportunities within 2 miles, and that 8 acres would fit 4 pickleball courts, a skateboard park. And that's the sketches I sent to you that have brand new kids equipment, the skateboard park, and pickleball in that space. And then it becomes communication and education of, we're not ripping a baseball field away from anyone. We're giving township and whoever to use those facilities. And then, you know, I foresee in the next, if we do pull that off, there's no reason Schoolcraft Township invest in pickleball courts unless the demand is so great, if there's already pickleball courts here. So it's kind of a trade-off.
As far as your question about, you know, upkeep of existing or build a new, so this new park facility is definitely in discussion. And I know, so right now, Clark Park, the kids area that's there, my child is 30, and that same playground equipment was there when she was a kid. You know, it's served its purpose, and it was good. But I think for that space in Clark Park, if we have another space that's a little more modern, you know, in this decade, for the young kids. I think that that space, that existing space in Clark Park, now has an opportunity to maybe look different, because now we have that play area over in the new complex. Now, you know, we toss around things like Vicksburg Central Park area, you know, that band shell, that opportunity for some of those events and art, theater in the park, you know, that kind of thing. So definitely both. We do have a couple of those little pocket parks, the one that we currently call Veterans Park, that is used, it sits right next to a wedding venue and gets used quite a bit for pictures when they do that, because it is right there by the lake. There's an opportunity there to take that space to, you know, more of that nature kind of photo shot spot. Calling it Veterans Park right now, and I agree with Benjamin, we need a Veterans Park, but when we do those Veterans Day events,
Ceremonies.
it can't happen there. There's no parking, it's not ADA, I mean, there's not enough space there. So maybe that's another area where we find a different use for it and come up with that idea for Veterans Park in one of our other spaces.
Yeah, and I think Mike can clarify this, but I think this process will also have some component that identifies. We started looking at that space that's not registered anywhere as quote-unquote Veterans Park. And we all know there is nothing that identifies it. There's nothing in recognizing veterans of anything, much less the military, in that space. We do have plans drawn up and worked with the Historic Society, have an area in the historic village park to have an appropriate veterans memorial where it has the parking that we hold. We currently hold it at the pavilion at Sunset Lake, the veterans. So I think it also, I'm trying to, both the playground equipment, completely agree with you. I think it'll help when we capture the citizens, and I hear this in my tenure on different subject matters, including park equipment, from a generational perspective of Vicksburg. Well, that equipment was bought in memory of this person. We could never get rid of that equipment. And everyone seems to forget you would need to be aged to remember, which I'm not minimizing it, but are my grandkids as thrilled to be on that equipment as my adult kids were 30 years ago? I don't know. So I think when we capture the citizens' comments, and we have grown this village so much that we might find that that's a priority to the citizens. To have put that in process is pretty key.
Any other thoughts on big picture priorities, issues, concerns?
Yeah, I had one more. The covered sitting area at Sunset Lake probably could hold maybe 10 people with 2 picnic tables. It should hold at least 50. It should be designed for groups of 50 people. It's never been rented out in years because it's honestly functionally far too small unless you don't have friends. Then it's fine, I guess. But yeah, it only holds a baby shower. It was a very small shower. It was just a baby one.
Well, let's talk programming and special events. We've mentioned it a little bit, Berg Days and movies in the park and things like that. It sounds like there's a lot of larger events that take place in town. What about programming? Are there Mommy and Me programs? Is there yoga? Is there things for people to do outside of big special events? And if not, if the village doesn't do it, and that's okay, where are they going? Are they going to YMCA's? Are they going to, just let's talk programming a little bit so I can get a sense of that. What's going on in town?
There is someone that uses the pavilion at Sunset Lake Beach for yoga. and we don't charge for that space. You just have to get on the list to reserve it, so we don't have competition. We have the larger pavilion that goes there, so.
The Methodist Church has some activities for seniors. Does the community center have anything?
The library.
The library?
The library does their reading program in the park in the summer. But I think it would be nice to make those kinds of things available. Obviously, it's not being done a lot right now, and there would definitely need to be a process in order to set something up like that, so we didn't just have people going rogue on us, doing their own thing. But I think that, I saw you shaking your head about the Mommy and Me program. I think that something like that would be a good thing, more yoga in the park, all of it.
Yeah, I think communication-wise, I mean, there's a big endeavor over the last 15 months for senior activities out of the United Methodist Church. It would be imperative for us to educate their leadership of, within their programming, of using our open space and working those things out, because they certainly, both in financial contributions and that programming, they're kind of quarterbacking.
I know that the Vicksburg Arts does a lot of senior activities like centered around arts, and knowing that Vicksburg does a lot of things with art, really bringing in that to the community more would be cool as well.
So let's elaborate on arts a little bit, because arts is becoming very trendy in another master plan, and it's been that way for a long time, but and it was mentioned in your comprehensive master plan about art being a priority. So are we talking public art? Are we talking performing arts, or yes to all of it?
Yes, to all of it, yeah.
And is there an existing art commission that the community recognizes as an official? Is there, okay. Arts
There's two,
District?
both the Vicksburg Arts Council, which is a nonprofit in of itself, and then the Prairie Run Artistry, so it's funded by the Vicksburg Land Company, where they bring in artists from all over the world for a 6-month
Cool.
homestay art, and then part is a give back to the community, so they'll open the gallery for a community event to highlight that project. They have both on the arts and then a second and separate one on music that Prairie Run coordinates, and they work in conjunction with Vicksburg Arts, but there's a good foundation to grow on.
Great. And certainly parks are a great location for public art, so keeping that in mind to meet the goal of this group and to meet the goal of the comprehensive plan could be a natural fit, so. Any other comments, questions?
I thought Daniel was gonna say something, but the schools district is very big on arts, all of the above, and they do a lot of things, so to incorporate some of the things that they do. Between the marching band, the performing arts, the actual art, they're really big on it, the choirs, everything, so it'd be great to include them too.
Does the DDA currently have a facade program in place, or?
We do. There's a paint grant program. We've heightened the facade to a public benefit grant, so we could give larger dollars. So for the past 3 years, there's 3 levels. It's either a $15,000 matching grant, so minimum of $30,000 project, one of those, 2 $7,500 ones, and 3 $3,000 ones. And I think in the last 3 years, we've had about $270,000 of private sector investment in the downtown, where the DDA has put in $160,000 to bring it up to over $400,000,
Wow.
if my memory serves me correct.
Great. Any other, I do want to allow some time for the public,
Yeah.
if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So any other high overarching thoughts from the board about priorities? Just what do you want to see in town? Cool, new things that might not be around that you know you want to have in town or hope to have in town?
Just really quickly, the extension of the trails, I keep limiting myself to Portage because that's all I know. And you talked about through the golf course, which I've walked through, but if there are other that I'm not aware of, opportunities to go in different directions, we should look at that as well. Just to link more up.
Yeah, there's discussions, it's outside of the village, but it would connect to trails that we've taken to the village limits. Both, and it's in a regional concept, basically call it complete the loop, so it would go from Vicksburg on Highway Street west to the village of Schoolcraft. There'd be a segment that would cut north to, I forget the county park that goes back to Prairie View Park, is it? And then north, from the village of Schoolcraft back to the Portage connectivity. So that's being quarterbacked by Schoolcraft Township and Portage.
And then after Portage, does it continue on somewhere else?
You could, well, and not to get confusing, Portage has in this fiscal year coming up, they will connect to, we bought land and put a non-motorized trail that goes a couple miles outside of the village limits, and that's all in place. On the county-wide plan, their trail system in the next 12 months, probably it's in their fiscal budget, will connect to that. So once that's done, you could ride on a non-motorized trail all the way to South Haven, Michigan, or Battle Creek.
That's a big deal.
Conversely, they can all ride here to the end of the trail.
And is there any group that's leading the way on marketing the fact that you can do that?
It will happen as soon as they connect.
Okay. I'm guessing
So
the county's
and
taking the lead.
It's been, I mean, they went through to acquire the last bit of land, it's been a couple years, but that's all been done now, and it's ready to turn dirt here in the next.
And I don't
12
want to
months.
digress from local parks, but that's a big deal if you're getting people into your town, using your parks,
Yeah.
driving economy, right, local business. So-
And I think that should be something. Yeah, and I think that's something that it maybe should even be included in this plan is highlighting the end of the trail.
Yeah.
That is a huge opportunity. There's a marketing campaign right there that could write itself. So,
Great. Anything else before we? No, it's okay. This is the time. Okay, I'll turn it back over to you for,
I have one more.
Yeah.
From your bike lane, of course, why don't we have one that, a sidewalk that takes us from Vicksburg to Schoolcraft? I just dumbfounded that whenever I see anyone on that road, North Prairie, on their bike, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I hope they get home safe, whoever that child is. Because I think a bike trail that way would just be healthy. Throwing it out.
okay?
If we want to, I think a way to do it is if people that are in the audience want to make comments, I think best maybe, Mike, do you mind coming down at the end, maybe
Nope.
sitting on this side?
Taking notes?
Welcome to the team. And we'll open it for citizen comments again with the time. Again, we'll do this first round. Let's try to limit it to 4 minutes, make sure everyone has a chance, and if there's follow-up, we'll do the follow-up. But you need to come to the podium, state your name and address, and then have 4 minutes.
Hello, Tamara Stafford, 895 East W, Vicksburg. I have two hats. I'm a Schoolcraft Township trustee. So addressing your connectivity, Township is they are moving forward with trails, and there's 4 phases. Phase 1 is W Avenue, Vicksburg to Schoolcraft. We hired a consulting firm, person, to do all of the legwork for us, so we're in the process. Huge undertaking. It's not gonna happen in a year. First phase is our parks plan, so that's in the works. We're not as far as you guys, but we will be, and we will be getting it done before February, so we can go after money. So that's hat one. Hat two, I'm the president of the Vicksburg Historical Society, so we want to be involved because we are a park, we are your park, and we want to make sure that we're included in all of this so that we have a say. And a couple of years back, Veterans Park was supposed to be in the village, the historic village, and I think that's what you were talking about, right? That it's coming, but, so anyway, thank you.
Yeah, and it'll help some, we, post-COVID, looked at it. We have a design for an appropriate Veterans Memorial to be there. The initial figures came in at $170,000. It was general fund money, and it competed for building this building for cash money at the time. So it's right now probably it's $200,000 as it was designed. So it is still on the board. It's still completely flight patterned out to be in that section of the historic village because it fits everything. So, but it goes to an educational point of what, and many people wouldn't know that historically people have called that Veterans Park, but like Wendy said, you know, is that more where we could highlight it for appropriate pictures, whether it's graduation pictures and wedding pictures on both sides, and we've looked at and petitioned because the railroad goes right through there. So we have been given the okay to put in for a beautification grant through CN Railroad for that area. So that's on the drawing board, but I never like to think grant money's coming through, so.
Alrighty, Rebecca Walters again, 420 South Kalamazoo here in Vicksburg. I would like to see this board focus on environmental first, then residential concerns, and then if we can double back any of those residentials onto economic and outreach. So like you were talking about, like an amphitheater, the downtown and different events, they can benefit off of that. So like we could invest in that, go a little bit further with it because it could impact multiple. I feel like we're also missing out. We keep saying trails and we keep saying things for these kids, but what about RC trails? We have a whole entire group of interactive arts, and you guys keep talking about arts, but we're missing different interactive arts, like musical trails. The other day during one of the June Vicksburg events, you guys had a magnetic board, went above and beyond and stuck magnets on hundreds of Hot Wheels, and the kids went berserk over it. Imagine if we had something like that along our trails where, you know what, a mom's stopping to do some squats, or dad's fumbling with the dog on the leash and the stroller, or the crying baby, or a random diaper change. Oh, look at that. Interactive music, go play. I can feed a baby. The dog can be taken care of, or, oh, look, different things along the way. But also, Vicksburg's coming up in the electronics, so RC parks, BattleBot, cages, things to get the kids outside, but are also there for those kids that aren't physically able to keep up with the sports or just darn right don't choose to. And while they do have their tablets and their phones, let's encourage them to use them in healthy ways because we can't get them out of it and we have to teach them. We got to let them go and grow. So how to do that except for show them how to use it appropriately. I'd also like to see the community garden. I have been looking for that for years, and a lot of our community members want that as well. When you guys did the master plan for the village, you guys came out and you had poster boards with the stickers. I've talked to numerous members of our community, and they loved that they were able to just grab stickers, do that, and go, and they loved that the kids were able to also get a part of it. So if you want the kids to interact with it, make it something just sticker, pictures, go. And because with laptops, we could get more interaction with the silent disco at the Berg days, but nobody wants to sit around and wait for the little 5-minute brief or detail or, you know, that kind of thing. So I feel like if we stuck to sticker opinions, that would help make it super smooth for the events. And then trail sign. A lot of people, if you ask the community, they all think that our Vicksburg Trail is about 25 feet, and it leads you to a train track. And that is the end of the trail for a lot of people. So if when we're doing this and focusing on our trail systems, if we can focus on making sure that our trail system signs are facing the right way to where it makes sense, or if it's just notice that it's parking and that they're not encouraging you to walk into a train track, that'd be awesome. And then also not for moving the park at Clark Park, the playground system. It is so nice to see our kids. They have interactions with the ice cream parlor, and they can cross the street right there and play. So if we could invest in making that beautiful and super great for them in that space, and just working on a little bit more parking, because you meet up with 4 moms and we have to pay attention to who's backing out and when, because it's such a tight, small space. And maybe a stabled bathroom. We're all waiting on those porta potties to get there when the weather gets out, and some of us go early in the spring. Like, we went to the beach last week. My kids played in the water. We played with sand. It was great, but there's no potties. So if we can get structured and stabled bathrooms in some of our parks, that'd be awesome. Thank you very much.
Hi there, Jessica Cox, 3684 East V Avenue. Thank you guys so much for doing what you do. I love this board, and I just recently stepped off, so I just love you guys. Thank you for doing what you're doing. When I was part of what we were talking about here, something that's really important to me is just consistency in the parks across the board. I love the symbiotic relationship between manicured and nature, but the parks that we do have, to make them inviting aesthetically, I think that's also going to be a draw for the community at large, that there's some, each of them are unique in what they offer, but if we can offer uniformity as far as the way that they look, little things, manicuring things, making sure that things are well maintained. If it's to be manicured, they're weeded. And I don't know if that's, a separate line item for maintenance or whatnot, but that all of that looks aesthetically pleasing as people are driving through Vicksburg, especially Clark Park or those nature areas, that it just makes a difference, especially with Berg Days, and as we're bringing more and more people into Vicksburg, that we look like we have thought this through is going to make a big difference as people are walking through the space. And encourage people to come and spend time in the Clark Park or whatever else. Thank you.
I think then, if you want to wrap up with the committee, that'd be great. Thank you for everyone's comments.
All right, well, I've got a lot of notes. Game plan going forward will be communication with staff on a process, on a first step for a public engagement session, getting some special events. It sounds like that's a priority for some special event participation, and then background work with the community description, administrative structure, and then the park inventory. So work is beginning. We will certainly communicate. I will communicate through Manager Mallory to you all about public input sessions and things going forward. And if there's any questions, you've got my email. I'm accessible if you need me. Feel free to reach out or work through Mr. Mallory, and then he can work through me if needed. So if there's no questions, thank you for having me this evening. Oh,
Okay, well, thank you, Mike, and thank you guys, everyone who took the time to comment. Anyone have anything else? Okay, we'll go ahead and adjourn our meeting.
There we go.